YouTube, welcome. Against the spread here, back with some above average, mediocre content. Today, we make our top picks for week 9 of the NFL. We have TB4 and myself, BX Star 10. NATO 7 is out, but he did send us his top picks, so we will go over them. Recapping last week, NATO 7 and BXR 10 both went 4 for 4, while TB4 went 2 for 4. Tony, or TB4, how do you feel about last week?
I was a little bit rough. The Rams, I had them destined to just come in and roll all over Miami. Miami was, just switching over to Tua. I feel like they caught a couple breaks pretty early in the game, and then the Rams just couldn't capitalize on it. And, they basically just flew under the radar the whole game. And then by the time they started moving the ball, it was just too late. And Miami already had gotten, a couple turnovers and gotten those lucky fumbles. And then it was just, it was not the game I was hoping it was going to be. San Fran against Seattle. San Fran was super beat up. I didn't realize how many San Francisco starters were out, come that Saturday night. So, yeah, I made my pick, and then I looked at the injury report again, and it was just Niner after Niner that was down, and they just could not hold back Seattle. I thought they had enough firepower to at least slow down Seattle, but Seattle just looks unstoppable. So maybe the play there is, don't bet against Seattle at this point in the season. And then New England, I thought that game was going to be a field goal game. It ended exactly the way I thought it was going to. Buffalo ended up winning by a few, and, that game carried over to about 45, and it was 24-21. So, it was a good game. It was good to finally see New England starting to move the ball. I think they had Edelman out. I think he's going to be out for another couple of weeks with some knee injuries. So I'm looking for New England to find a new up and coming number one receiver and get Cam some support.
Yeah, and you're right. And the Rams doing 4 turnovers also helped Miami get out to a big lead where the Rams had to become one-dimensional. San Fran, they've been beat up, and even that Thursday game just recently against the Green Bay Packers, you can just tell they're just not the same team right now with all those injuries. Garoppolo out.
Oh, they're shot.
Yeah, Kittle
Absolutely.
out. Yeah. And New England, I mean, that was a good, hard fought battle. Yeah, that was a good battle against the Bills in New England. I did enjoy that game. I watched the whole thing in its entirety. My picks, I guess they went ideal. They went ideal. Vikings went over by 1 point. Vikings went over by 1 point, and Vegas wasn't worried about the snow
Thanks to
against
Cook.
Cleveland.
I mean, that game only went over because Cook scored 4 tutties. I mean, let's be honest. Cook doesn't have a monstrosity of a game. That game's going to be dead under maybe 40 points scored in that game. So I'm glad it went over. I'm glad you were right. I just did not expect the Vikings to look that good. So I don't know where that was the rest of the season, but we'll see how they play here on out.
Yeah, and I agree. And Vegas ended up beating Cleveland in the Snow Bowl. I know it was a low-scoring game, but Cleveland's been beat up all season, so it's been tough for them to deal with those injuries, just like San Fran, and dealing with a Raiders team who's actually been pretty solid as of late.
I guess the crazy thing is NATO had the Chiefs minus 19.5 as his lock. And, looking looking at how bad the Jets were, the game was 35-9, and the Chiefs just completely dominated that game. And when you're given 19.5 points and that's your lock pick and it comes through and they win by, that type of margin, was it 26 points? I mean, that's insane. The Jets are just god awful.
Funny thing is I had the Jets plus 26 in my teaser bet, which ended up pushing that part of my teaser and ended up winning the teaser because they ended up pushing. If I didn't take that extra half point, it would have been a loss by the hook, but I ended up covering it.
Yeah.
But getting into week
Well, let's
9,
dive into yeah, let's dive into nine.
do you want to go
I'll
ahead
kick
and
us
give your
off. I
first?
mean,
Yeah.
Arrow's not here. Yeah. So Tampa Bay over 50.5. They're playing New Orleans. Both teams have big time scoring capabilities. Antonio Brown's first game, I feel like they're going to get him in the mix. They have so many weapons on offense, it's not even funny. So anytime they get the Lions at about 50, I still have to count on Tampa Bay, putting up 27, 30 points a game. I'm looking at, the receivers. I think Godwin's fighting to come back. Antonio Brown's going to be there. They obviously have Mike Evans, who's starting to look healthier by the day. They have Jones, they have Fournette, they have Gronk. As long as he's Brady keeps getting those two-step drops and those quick drops, that line's going to hold up. That run game's getting better and better. I know Jones had that fumble early last week, but they didn't hesitate to make that switch to Fournette right away. So I think they have a really good balance on offense, and they're probably top three offenses in the league once you written on paper. And then, of course, obviously you have New Orleans. I mean, New Orleans always just finds a way to score points. They don't look as good on offense as they have in the past, especially without Michael Thomas. But they still have a lot of weapons. They're finding ways to score points. Kamara looks like he's in rookie year form. I mean, he's playing great. He looks like he's coming right out of Alabama. He looks faster, stronger. So I'm looking for them to at least keep the game close. I think Tampa Bay does win that game, but I think it goes over. And then, Minnesota, they're playing Detroit. They always play well against Detroit. It's a little bit of a rivalry. It's a division game. So, Minnesota, again, looking at last week, they covered, cover that 49 points, and they're looking to cover again. Detroit has a little bit of offense. I'm expecting Dalvin Cook to repeat, what he did last week against a not so good Detroit defense. And, the game I really like this week is Baltimore against Indy. When Baltimore is an underdog, they always seem to play a lot better. But for some reason, when they're the ones that are the favorites, they play down to their competition. So I think this motivates them. I think that they're going to, have some offense click. I know Indy is ranked in the top three as far as defense goes, and, yards against, they're rated very high. But you look at Baltimore's offense, you look at Lamar Jackson, I think he's going to be able to have not as hard of a time moving the ball. And I think they keep this game close. It's not going to be as high scoring as you guys think it might be. I'm looking for Baltimore to come away with this 24, 23 to 20, 24, 23 to 21. It's going to be a very close game, but Baltimore squeaks ahead.
Yeah, and I agree with that. Baltimore plus 1.5. I am concerned about your Minnesota over 50.5 with Stafford being placed on the COVID-19 list. He's out for this game. I don't know if they're going to be able to do it with their backup. I know that Stafford is a big part of that offense, and they paid him enough for that. So I don't know if that's going to end up going over 50.5. It's going to basically be all Minnesota at that point. Tampa Bay, I guess
it kind of reminds me of that Minnesota game real quick. It reminds me of the Miami game last week where, they have a new quarterback coming in. It's going to be a sloppy game of football. I'm looking for Minnesota to just come in and put the hurting on Detroit. And Stafford obviously would help the offense, but I think, Stafford not being there, I think that, the backup quarterback's going to come in and basically, have 2 or 3 turnovers, which is going to give Minnesota the ball in short field position. I think it's going to be a higher scoring game for that reason.
Yeah, and he was only placed on the COVID-19 list. It's not that he actually tested positive. It's actually the fact that he was in close contact with someone who was a high-risk individual, and that's why they put him on there. I guess it's out of abundance of precaution. But, I don't know if that translates into points by going to the backup. With Tampa Bay, it depends on their defense. What defense shows up, really? Last week, their defense was almost absent. I don't know what they were doing. But we'll see this week. They might actually have a bounce back week with their defense. So, that over, it's going to be really close to that line. I know it's New Orleans and they push the ball. They don't throw it down the field because everyone's hurt on that team. I think, is Michael Thomas coming back this week?
I do not believe so.
Okay, well, that would be a big help if he was. I guess going into my picks, I'm picking Denver plus 4.5. I'm kind of riding their high. They're playing the Chargers this week. I'm riding their high when they're playing Atlanta this week. Sorry about that. They played the Chargers last week and ended up pulling a narrow victory, 31-30. So I'm kind of riding that victory and seeing if they can actually put that together and end up making a 2-game win streak. The Bears under, I just don't see the Bears putting up a lot of points. It's going to be on Derrick Henry and the Titans trying to put up a lot of points. But majority of the Bears games, they go under. I don't see why this is not going to be any different. The Raiders, they're a solid team. They have a lot of good wins under their belts. So having the extra 1.5 points, I feel that they should be able to cover it against the Chargers, who actually just came off a loss. So I guess we'll see what happens with those these 3 picks, but I feel like this is a really confident week for me.
So just double checked. It looks like Michael Thomas is prepared to play tomorrow. However, it's still day to day, and it's gonna be a game time decision. So we'll see if they bring him out there. He still has an ankle and hamstring injury that's been lingering, but I still wonder if it has to do with that fight that he had gotten into. He was prepped to play a few weeks ago, and he seems like he's gotten a few more weeks off, and they're just still holding him out as far as the ankle and the hammy goes. So he may suit up. I mean, we'll see tomorrow.
Lifetime or real-time injury report. I like it.
Yeah.
All
And then
right.
you had the Raiders, we had Balto. Let's talk about the Chiefs real quick. The Chiefs over 52.5. That seems like a lot of points.
It's one of NATO's picks here. The Chiefs are playing Carolina, and Carolina's getting McCaffrey back. CMC is ready to go. Today was actually when they activated him off the injured reserve. So, I mean, Carolina keeps games close, and it's really hard to stop Kansas City. So I don't see Carolina doing anything different like that. But having CMC back, they're definitely going to put up some points. So 52.5 is a possibility, and I like it.
And I actually like that too. When I'm thinking about it, I'm looking at Carolina's offense is really what's going to have to step up in order to keep that game over, right? But I'm looking at it, and they have Robbie Anderson, they have Moore. I mean, they have some pretty decent wide receivers. They have Samuel, and then with
Mm-hmm.
the addition of CMC coming back, and Mike Davis has been playing pretty darn good. So when I look at when I look at the Chiefs, they're guaranteed to put up 30 to 40 points a game. I mean, it's really just can you keep up with them, and as long as Carolina stays out of those third down and 7+, I think they'll be okay. So yeah, I don't hate that pick, but 52.5 is still a lot of points, and the Chiefs have been known to slow games down when they feel they don't need to run up the score. So we'll see how that game plays out.
Carolina's game plan for this week is to try to keep the ball out of Mahomes' hand, because once that gets into the Chiefs'
That's
hand, they're
everything
pushing
for
the.
them.
I know, but
Oh
that's the
yeah.
problem. Are you going to be able to do that? And I don't know if that's going to be the. I don't know if they're going to be able to do it.
So far, the answer this year has always been no. So we'll see. We'll see how that game goes.
Except when they play the
It
Raiders.
was great. Yeah, looks like you got some pretty solid picks.
And 807
Yeah,
actually
that
also
does
is
figure.
two of our picks here. The Raiders +1.5 and Balto +1.5. So Raiders going up
Yeah,
against the
both of our
Chargers.
locks.
So yeah, both of our locks. He has his one is actually his lock too, which is why our ATS lock pick of the week is Balto +1.5. It was more of a confidence pick based on TB4's pick and NATO's pick. So we rolled that into our ATS lock pick of the week.
Book it.
Yeah, do you have any fantasy players that you think might have a good week this week?
Oof. I kind of already mentioned him. I'm looking at Robbie Anderson again. I think I mentioned him a few weeks ago. I just think that he's always a fly under the radar type of player. If you're looking at like FanDuel, he's a reasonable receiver who's not super expensive, and he gets you a lot of points. So I've been on the Robbie Anderson train for some time now. You'd be surprised, but I'm actually looking at Darnell Mooney to have a good game this week. I feel like he's been getting a ton of opportunities on the Bears, and he's been getting more and more targets. And as long as they get him the ball and they can get up to him within a a reasonable arm's length. I mean, Foles is not exactly the most accurate, but if Foles is accurate, Mooney can have a big game this week. So we'll see how that plays out. Those are my two guys this week.
I wouldn't necessarily blame Foles for that because our offensive line, the Bears'
Oh,
offensive
terrible.
line, is just
Yeah,
playing
terrible.
awful. So if they would get any sort of time in the backfield there, I think that he delivers a strike majority of the time. I was happy to see them throwing the ball deep down the field last week. So
Yeah.
I know they
Who are
ended
your
up
who are your
losing, but
who are your picks? Who are
I
your
guess my fantasy player that I'm looking at this week is going to be Chase Edmonds on Arizona. So Kenyon Drake is actually out this week. So he is the
he's been
backup.
out.
Well, he's been on and off. He hasn't completely been out. Now he's completely out for the week. Last week he was there still. He re-aggravated an injury or something like that, and so they put in Chase Edmonds. Chase Edmonds, he's a legit back. He can run the ball. He's a receiving back, and in a PPR style league, he can put up 20 points easy for you. Another one I can see is Stephon Diggs. I know he is the number one on Buffalo, but they are going up against Seattle, which is a weak secondary. So he could actually have a big game with Josh Allen. So I foresee those two players having decent weeks this week.
Yeah, I can see it. I can see it. One guy too that I'm kind of flying under the radar on is Jackson, Justin Jackson. I think he's playing another team. He's playing Vegas. I think that Vegas has given up some decent rushing yards. I think they're middle of the road, but they've been getting progressively worse and giving up the run. So, I think Justin Jackson has a big game, and with Eckler being out, and I think Kelly isn't exactly the strong back that they were hoping he was going to be. So I'm looking for him to take those Eckler numbers, get 7 to 10 targets on the passing game, maybe 50, 60 yards on the passing. And then, hopefully he rushes for 60 plus yards. And, I'm looking for him to have a pretty big game. And again, if you're looking at FanDuel, low key, not high expensive guys, I mean, that'd definitely be one of them.
Yeah, and I can see him having a decent week, especially with them Detroit focusing on the run game with Dalvin Cook. He's going to end up sneaking behind the secondary, maybe put up at least a touchdown.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, that's our video for this week. If you guys like our content, please like and subscribe. We'll talk to you guys next week.